everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'll be showing you the 5 cards that I created with the October 2019 Hero Arts card kit. As always, I'm going to show you the coloring for all 5 cards. At this point, I wasn't sure how I wanted these cards to look. I just knew roughly of the color scheme that I wanted. Right now I'm coloring this car pink, and I think this is like a vintage 50s Chevrolet. And immediately when I saw this car, I thought of like a Barbie car for some reason. And so I wanted to do like a pink and turquoise kind of card using this car. And it was kind of fun to look up color schemes in the 1950s. I'm personally not a huge fan of the furniture back then, but it was definitely fun to create some cards in non-traditional Christmas colors. For all of the images, I am coloring with my Copic markers. You can see the car I did silver heat emboss, and then the rest of the images I stamped out in Memento Tuxedo black ink, which is an alcohol-friendly ink. I also stamped all of these images onto 110-pound white neenah cardstock. This is a really nice cardstock for alcohol ink blending. And whenever I work with my Copic markers, I always start with my darkest color, map out the darkest areas. So for this couch, I'm putting most of the darker areas on the left bottom corner, and then my highlight will be towards the center upper right hand corner. I start with my darkest, go over that with my mid-tone, and then I leave some white space to go over the entire image with my lightest marker. And like I said earlier, at this point I wasn't sure what my card designs would be, but I was fairly certain about the color scheme that I wanted for each of my cards. And I knew that for one of them I wanted it to be black and white. So for a few of these images I'm going to color them in with my cool gray markers. And I'm only showing you how I colored the larger images from the stamp set because the smaller ones I only used 2 markers and they were really quick to color in. But for the most part I'm showing you pretty much every image that came in the stamp set. And I am curious to know if you guys would prefer if I leave out my coloring. I personally like watching people color, but it does add close to 5 minutes to each of my videos. And I know that not everyone has time to be sitting around and watching a super long video. So let me know what you would prefer. I'm going to base the decision off of majority rules, I guess. And keep in mind that if I do take out the coloring, I will probably slow down the card making process because I have been getting comments that my videos are just really fast, which they are because they're hard for me to keep up the voiceover with. But I try to keep my videos under 30 minutes. So just let me know what you guys would prefer, and that's what I'll do for my future card kit videos. So this fireplace was really fun to color. I took my C6 marker and I'm going over all those lines in between the stones. I think it's called grout, if I'm not mistaken. And that kind of makes the stones look like they're popping out of the fireplace. I think that really adds a cool effect. And right now I'm going over the stones with my C4 marker. I'm adding the shading towards the left side of each of the stones. You could make the fire your light source, that makes sense. But for some reason I made my light source coming from the top right corner. After I added the C4 shading, I just went over the whole fireplace with my C2. And now I'm going to work on the logs and the fire. I'm going to extend this yellow marker all the way across that rectangle area on the fireplace to really make it look like the fire is glowing. And I love how that fireplace turned out. So now I'm just going to color in my last image here. I'm going to color this tree in some bright neon green colors. When I looked up 50s Christmas decor, I noticed that there was just a lot of neon colors, which is cool. I really like traditional, and I love the rustic Christmas, so like browns, maroons, and white. But anyway, I went ahead off camera and die cut all of these images, and you can see that I also die cut some of those trees in some green cardstock and white cardstock, and then I just went over those with some silver embossing powder, and I didn't color those in. I just used colored cardstock. So now I'm going to work on card 1. I'm taking some Salty Ocean Distress ink and a life-changing brush by Picket Fence Studios, and I'm going to add some of that onto the turquoise cardstock that came in the kit. I didn't bother to add any ink to the bottom since I knew that would be covered up with some snow and a street. And then I went over the Salty Ocean with faded jeans, and then towards the top I'm going to add some black soot. And that blended very nicely. And now I'm going to spray some water, and I also tried to flick on some white watercolor. It didn't end up looking that good, but I didn't want to start over, and most of this gets covered up anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I did want to add some snow in the background, so I'm taking a white gel pen and just drawing little dots in the sky. And now I'm going to work on the road for my car. I'm taking some black cardstock, adding a little bit of glue to the bottom, and I'm just going to trim the excess off, so I'm left with just probably a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch black strip at the bottom. This blue panel is cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And now I'm freehand cutting some snow slopes out of some white cardstock. And then I'm just going to layer them on top of each other, and then see how my car looks. Okay, so now I'm taking some yellow cardstock and I'm going to trim out a skinny strip, and then I'm going to cut some small rectangles that I'm going to add to the road. These are going to be my safety bumps. I'm not sure what they're called, their technical term is, but I do think that this helps to make the car look like it's driving on a street of some sort. So I'm attaching those with my art glitter glue. I'm going to round out these slopes more with my scissors. You could obviously use a die if you have one. And then I'll just attach those with my art glitter glue. I surprisingly did not add any foam tape, but I will add some foam tape behind my car to add some dimension. I'm going to flip this panel over and trim off the excess. And now I'm going to start to lay out my scene. I want to give my car a tree to be taking home. And in the background, I thought it would be cute to try to create like a tree farm to make it look like the driver had just bought a tree from this tree farm. I'm trimming some of the green trees to make them look smaller and to make them appear that they're in the distance. And then the closer the trees get to the road, the larger they are, so I'm not trimming off any of those trees. I'm keeping them the full original size. And I thought it would be fun to add some glitter, because glitter did come in this month's kit, and I love glitter, especially on holiday cards. So I'm going to add glitter to all of the trees, the windows of the car, the trunk, hood, and the stripe on the car. And you probably can't see, but I did silver heat emboss all of the green trees, and I did stamp the trees on different shades of green. That was just because I wanted some variation. I also die cut some of the trees from white so that some of them look like they had snow on them. But once you add the glitter, you really can't see the silver embossing powder, so I would recommend that you just die cut the trees from whatever colored cardstock you want. I don't think the stamping is necessary, especially if you add the glitter. Okay, so I'm going to remove the backing on the foam tape behind the car, and then I'll just attach that. And now I can attach all the little trees. I did add some foam tape behind a few of the trees, and then on some of them I'm going to just glue them flat with my art glitter glue. Here you can see that sign again, and I will be handwriting trees for sale on that sign. This die cut sign is a die from Elizabeth Craft, and I will have it linked down below. Okay, so I'm just going to finish up the last few trees here, and then I'm going to take a fine liner to write out my message that says trees for sale. You could stamp out your sentiment instead. I'm pretty sure warmest wishes would fit in that little sign. And you can also hand cut your own sign, since this is a pretty easy die cut, I think. I added some vintage sepia around the edges of the sign just to give it some dimension. And just to dress it up and make it festive, I'm going to add a wreath to the sign. And it's at this point where I could have just stopped adding things, but I don't know when to stop syndrome, so I'm going to also add a few little presents coming out of the trunk of the car. And that will complete the scene. So I'm going to take my card base. This is an A2 110-pound white neenah card base. I'm going to add some ATG tape behind my turquoise panel and just adhere that onto my card base. And that will complete card number 1. I love the glitter on this card. It's super pretty. Here's a close-up. Okay, for card 2, I'm taking this small strip of white cardstock and I'm going to run it through a striped embossing folder that I had in my stash. I also went ahead and cut down a piece of Christmas pattern paper to 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and then I cut a strip of gold cardstock from my stash. And I wanted this to look like a living room wall. So the white cardstock is supposed to look like the crown molding, and the pattern paper is supposed to look like wallpaper. And then the gold strip is just there to kind of break up the two pieces of cardstock. Here you can see I'm laying out my scene. I'm going to add 4 stockings to my fireplace and 2 green trees on either side of my fireplace. You can see that I stuck to more traditional colors. However, they're very bright neon colors, so that kind of goes with the 50s theme. And I did incorporate some turquoise and pink colors, which I would never normally do, but I really love how that turned out. So now I'm working on the sentiment. I gold heat embossed Merry Christmas onto some white cardstock, and I will be die cutting that out from an oval die in my stash. Okay, so all of my elements are die cut, so I can start to assemble my card here. I'm going to attach my white embossed panel as well as my gold strip with some ATG tape. I'm going to attach the stockings with my art glitter glue. And I decided to add Santa's boots coming down the chimney. I love that little image. It's so cute. Okay, and I thought it would be fun to include some more glitter that came in the kit. So I'm going to add some art glitter glue to the white areas on the stockings and the white portions on Santa's boots. And then I'll just pour the glitter right on top. This glue does stay wet for quite a while, so you don't have to rush this process. And art glitter glue dries completely clear, so whatever color is underneath the glue will be shown once the glue is dry. And the glitter is transparent, so for me, I've never found a glitter that's completely transparent. Most of them are somewhat white when the glue dries underneath them. So I really do like this glitter that came in the kit, and I'll probably be buying more. So for the ornaments on the trees, I'll be adding some art glitter glue and some glitter. And like I said, since both the glue and the glitter is transparent, you will see the color once everything is dry. So now I'm going to add some greenery to the top of my fireplace. This is a Spellbinders die, and I just die cut that from some of the green cardstock that came in the kit. I just wanted to add something to the top of the fireplace to add some interest. Okay, so I'm going to attach the bottom of the wreath and the sides of the trees onto my fireplace. That way I can flip the whole thing over and add some foam tape. I'm also going to add some foam tape behind my sentiment. And I'm going to add this cute little die cut cat. This is a die from Gina Marie. And I decided to incorporate the cat because it looks like it's looking up the chimney, kind of investigating what's coming down it. So I thought that was really cute. On the other side of the fireplace, I'm going to add a few presents to try to balance the cat on the left. Like I said, I try to be as symmetrical as I could with this card. Okay, so that's going to complete my scene. I'm going to add some ATG tape behind my red panel and attach that to my card base. And that will complete card number 2. I think this one's my favorite. I love the bright neon colors and that fireplace. For card 3, I'm going to do some die cutting. So I'm taking that same Spellbinder's wreath die and I'm going to die cut that 4 times from the 2 shades of green cardstock that came in the kit. I'm also die cutting a gold frame using 2 stitched rectangle dies I have in my stash. And I'll also die cut this Heartfelt Creations banner from some white cardstock. And so here is how my gold frame turned out. I'm going to add 2 thin strips of gold behind this frame. I'm going to glue one vertically down the center and one horizontally down the center. And they will intersect in the middle. And that's going to create a window. You could obviously use a die, but I like that you can create any sized window just using your rectangle dies. And I try to limit my supplies when I am working with kits, so that way I can showcase the kits and their versatility. So I'm adding some acetate behind this window. I do like that acetate makes the window look like it has glass behind it, but you will also need the acetate in order to do this technique that I'm doing here. I'm taking some art glitter glue and I'm basically just scribbling on some glue onto each section of this window. I'm adding glue on the tops and bottoms of each of the window panes. And I'm trying not to add too much because there will be a scene behind the window and I don't want it to cover it completely. And I'm basically just trying to make this look like the window has snow on top of it. Now I'm taking some chunky glitter from my stash and I'll just add that right over the glue. And I chose chunky glitter because it dries white, so it looks more like snow. And I personally just like this technique more with the chunky glitter. But I am adding some of the glitter that came in the kit. Since it is ultra fine, it will attach to all the areas that the chunky glitter might not have adhered to. You will have some glitter that sticks to your acetate. You can easily wipe that away with a dry paintbrush. And here's how that window turned out. I love doing this for my winter cards. And if you've been subscribed to me for over a year now, you might know that I created a similar card last year, I think using the October Hero Arts card kit in 2018. I created a window that's looking outside. This window is looking inside. So here are those branches that I die cut from 2 shades of green cardstock. I added a little bit of glitter to them. And I'm going to snip some of them so that they're easier for me to adhere. And I'll just attach those to the top of my window. You can see that I am covering the glitter that I added, but that's okay. So I'm adding a whole bunch of branches. They're overlapping because I want this to look like a full garland. And then in the center, I will add this little wreath. And I didn't like how the branches were being seen in the center of that wreath, so I'm going to cover it with the inside piece that die cuts out with the die cut, I guess. And now I'm going to stamp the sentiment I chose from Our Home to Yours. I will gold heat emboss that onto the white banner that I die cut. Okay, once my sentiment is heat set, I'm just going to place it over my window to see where I might like it. And now I can work on the scene behind the window, and I'm going to create a similar layout that I did for card 2. So I'm taking that same pattern paper and I'm going to use that as my wallpaper again. And I also added a strip of white cardstock to the bottom. And now I'm taking a few of the stamped and die cut images. I'm going to lay them out. I thought I wanted to use the table, but I end up going with the record player instead. So I like how that looks. I will attach everything with my art glitter glue. I decided to adhere everything flat since I will be popping up my window. I'll just add a few presents underneath the tree, and you'll see that I'm sometimes bringing that window over the scene just to make sure that I'm not gluing any of the furniture where those two gold strips are. I want to make sure that all of the furniture is seen through the window. And I actually glued that clock a little too high, so next time I guess I'll glue it lower. I added some foam tape behind the gold window frame and popped that up over the scene. And that little gap between the clock and the window pane was bothering me, so I'm going to add a little cat walking across. And I think that's really cute, and it coordinates with the second card. So I think I'll be selling these two cards as a pair. And again, that little die cut cat is by Gina Marie. I'm going to add my sentiment to the bottom. I did end up covering the snowy glitter technique that I did earlier. So if you were to do this card, you wouldn't have to add as much snow as I did. So I'll just add some ATG tape behind my window and attach that to a card base. And that will complete card number 3. Here's a close-up. Moving on to card 4, this was the only card I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. This will be my black and white card, so I'm going to start off by stamping and white heat embossing my sentiment onto some black cardstock. I chose Have Yourself a Merry Christmas. I'm just going to heat set that with my heat tool, and then I'll just trim that out with my scissors. And here is my little scene I kind of put together off camera. I'm going to use that Charlie Brown tree, and behind the tree I'll just add a white couch. These are all my black and white images. I thought it would be cool to create a black and white scene inside a TV, since in the 50s all of the TV channels were black and white. So I'll also adhere a table and then another one of those clocks. And I am adhering everything onto a stitch square, and I did die cut that from the silver cardstock that came in the kit. Here's that sentiment I trimmed out, and then I'm going to create the TV by punching out a circle from some black cardstock. This is a Recollections punch. I also punched out a gray circle, and I'm going to trim this one to be a little bit smaller. If you had a smaller circle punch, you can use that instead, or a die. It was pretty easy just to cut my own circle that was slightly smaller than the black. And I created the red rectangle just with my trimmer. I will have all of the measurements on my coordinating blog post. Right now I'm going to take a small skinny strip of that silver foiled cardstock, and I'm going to round both ends of it, and that's going to be the dial on my TV. So I'll attach that right over the gray circle with some art glitter glue. And to fill in the gap between the sentiment and the dial, I'm going to add 2 smaller punched out silver circles. And right now it kind of looks like a radio, but I want it to look more like a TV. So I'm going to cut out some thin strips of the same silver cardstock that came in the kit. And I'm also going to die cut 2 smaller circles using a Recollections punch, and then 1 more of those larger black circles. And here you can see that really looks like a 50s TV. I'm super happy with how this turned out. I didn't use any dies, although you could if you wanted to. I'm going to pop up the sentiment and the scene. And I think I also pop up the dial, but I will glue the 2 silver buttons above the dial flat. And now I'm going to work on the antenna. I glued half the circle behind the TV, the larger black one, and then behind the black circle I'll add my antennas. And unfortunately, because I created an A2 card base, I had to significantly shorten my antennas, as you can see here. So it might not look as much like a TV, but I think the thought is there. And if you wanted some longer antennas, you could create an A7 card or a square card instead. So I'm going to attach it onto some black and white polka dot pattern paper I had in my stash. I love the black and white on this card and the little bit of red popping through. So here you can see I have to shorten my antennas even more. I'm going to add some ATG tape behind the polka dot panel and adhere that onto my card base, and that will complete card number 4. This was pretty quick to put together, and I love the outcome. For card 5, I'm going to use that pink and white Chevrolet that I colored at the beginning of this video. I'm going to place it on top of this die cut oval, but I wanted to dress it up a little bit, so I'm taking the snowflakes and the stars that came in the stamp set. I'm going to ink those up with my pink Memento Dewdrop ink. This particular ink has a pearlized sheen to it, so it dries very shiny and pretty. I chose a pink color to match my car. I'm just going to stamp those snowflakes and stars all around this oval. Right now I'm just inking 1 or 2 of them so I can fill in the last few white areas. Okay, so I'm placing my car over this oval and I felt that it just didn't stand out enough. So I'm going to ground it with this silver foiled cardstock that came in the kit. I added some ATG tape, and then I'll just flip that oval around and trim off the excess. And I like that much better. So I went for a non-traditional color scheme for this card. So I colored in a Christmas tree in more of like a teal color scheme. And I just added that to the top of the car. You can see the windows, I added some silver embossing powder to those. And in the end, I didn't really like it, so I will add glitter over the windows later on. I'm going to add my last few packages to the back of my car, and then I'm going to add a few on top of the silver foil. I'm attaching all of those with my art glitter glue. I also went around the top of the oval with that same Memento Dewdrop ink, just to help frame it in a little bit more. I'll pop up my car, and I thought I was going to use that Merry Christmas oval, but I decided not to use it. I'm going to adhere that oval to the top of this pattern paper I had in my stash. I also added a bow to the top, and then my sentiment I stamped inside a white Heartfelt Creations die cut banner. I did silver heat emboss Sending Winter Wishes inside of that. And now the only supply I had not used from the kit were these snowflake sequins. So I'm going to scatter a few of those around this card. And I'm sorry, I lost the footage of me gluing all of this together, but you can kind of see what I did. I just glued a larger pink bow, and then on top of that I added a white string bow. I did add a snowflake sequin to the center of the white bow. And that will complete card number 5. I did add some glitter, which you will see when I showcase all 5 cards, and I think that looks a lot better. So here are all 5 cards that I created. I really enjoyed working with this kit. I wanted so bad to make 10 cards with this kit because I feel like the possibilities are endless, but it is busy card making season, so I had to set my priorities to making cards that will sell, and I have some larger custom orders happening right now. So unfortunately, I can only bring you 5 cards this month. I might come back to this kit later on, but for now, I'm very happy with how these 5 turned out. Let me know which card was your favorite. And if you haven't yet already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you're notified when I post another video. Thanks again for watching. Bye.